Hello, I will be talking about poverty and racism that Native Americans suffer on the reservation that is highlighted in the young adult novel The Absolute True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie. This novel has many themes that are important, but I will be discussing racism and poverty in the novel, as well as in the real world today. One example of racism discussed in the book is the use of Native Americans imagery for sports mascots and logos. The novel, Arnold transfers to a school where the only other Indian is the mascot. This is hurtful and also pretty ironic since many of the students are racist and love to chant, "Go Indians!" at sporting events or whatever place you would chant your school's cheer. There are lots of professional teams that use Native Americans as their logos. I've heard a lot of arguments for why these mascots aren't racist and should be allowed. I was pretty indifferent to the argument, to be honest, because I hadn't really thought much about it. However, after reading Arnold's thoughts on it as Alexie wrote it, I realized how offensive and hurtful the mascots are. Arnold is subjected to a lot of cruel treatment, name-calling, of racist chants at his school. The students don't seem to know better in some cases. They don't understand that the words they are using are racist slurs, such as calling him chief. As they learn about Arnold and his culture, they stop using the terms, as they say, when you know better, you do better. I personally didn't know a lot about current Native American struggles. I honestly didn't choose this book to learn about them either. I had heard about the book because it was being made into a movie, and Hugh Jackman is gonna be in the film. Also, I heard it is on the banned book list. Unfortunately, I read books about my own interests and don't expand my horizons that much. This could keep me indifferent and uninformed. But now that I know about them, I can't help but care about what Native Americans are going through. It wasn't just gaining information that affected me. Reading the articles didn't impact me much. Knowing that nameless people somewhere are poor and hurt doesn't make me care all that much, because I hear about it all the time, about how lots of people are suffering in today's world, and I just go on with my own life. Well, we all do. This shows our indifference. I think hearing personal stories can make us care though. This book was really sad. Probably the saddest book I've ever read, to be honest. And some of it is based on Alexia's life. Hearing a story about one person's life made me care and no longer be indifferent. Seeing current pictures of people on Indian reservations made it real. We'll talk about those in a couple slides though. Alexia's writing as Arnold talks about poverty that Native Americans families suffer. This picture is from the book here. Alexia shows how a high schooler's outfit would differ from a white student's outfit. About how a white person would have a bright future and an Indian would have a vanishing past. And the white kid has this nice shirt, good backpack, good role models, good pants, and hope. But being Native Americans mean you have a vanishing past. You have dirty clothes. Your family has lots of problems like diabetes or cancer. Your clothes are really cheap, and sometimes your book bag is also a garbage bag. And that could be a bone crushing reality. One of the most brutal moments of the novel is about Arnold's dog, who is really sick. Arnold wants to take him to the vet, but his family can't afford it to take the dog to the vet, so his dad has to shoot the dog, so the dog doesn't continue to suffer. Arnold says, quote, "A bullet only costs about 2 cents, and anybody can afford that," end quote. Arnold wants to blame his parents, but then says, quote, "It's not like my mother and father were born into wealth. It's not like they gambled away their family fortunes. My parents came from poor people who came from poor people, all the way back to the very first poor people. End quote. Some of these pictures are from the Spokane Indian Reservation, where Arnold supposedly lives. It is the same reservation where Alexei grew up. Some are from the Pine Ridge Reservation. This is a reservation that is known today where Native Americans live in a terrible poverty. I've read 2 articles on the topic, one discussing whether the government should help the Native Americans more, while the other article blames the government's aid, as what has caused the poverty of Native Americans. What is clear to me after reading the novel and reading the articles is that something should be done to help those Native Americans that are struggling, especially those on the reservations. It doesn't really matter why they are in that position they are in. If I'm being totally honest, a lot of the reason they're so poor historically has to do with us, colonization by whites. The US took their land and murdered many of them while oppressing the others. Some facts I came across include the high rate of poverty and unemployment on Indian reservations. As you can see in these numbers on the screens, according to the College Horizons, only 51% of Native Americans graduate high school. The graduation rates are becoming worse instead of better. Only 5% of Native Americans' high schools graduate and go directly to college. Only 10% of that will graduate in the 4 years. Native Americans who live on reservations are only half as likely as white students to get a 4-year degree. If Native Americans aren't gaining an education, then it will be hard to find jobs and harder to get out of poverty. It makes sense that unemployment is so high on reservations based on their lack of education. There are other issues. Poverty and the lack of jobs lead to larger issues and mental health concerns. Suicide is the second leading cause of suicide of the youth on Native Americans reservations. They lead difficult lives and need help. My life is really different from that of Arnold's or Alexei's, and those that live on Indian reservations. I don't have serious money problems. We have reliable cars. My parents both have jobs that aren't totally terrible, and they're happy that they're doing their jobs. However, my mom grew up in poverty. She didn't have running water in her home. Her family often didn't have a car that worked. One car had wood nailed to the back of it. She was often made fun by other students, like Alexia. My mom was a big reader and liked school. This helped her get out of poverty. This is one connection I have to Alexia. Alexia. Earlier, I said that knowing better means doing better. But even though I know, I wonder, does knowing better really mean I will do better? I do care about what Native Americans' children are dealing with. I feel like my perspective has changed, but what will I do now? On a personal level, I don't know what to do to help. I don't know how to make an impact, since very few people try to help that cause. What I can do is not participate in a racist language of any kind and speak out against it. I can try my best to not be indifferent. If I had money of my own, which I don't right now, I could donate money to the cause. On national level, some attention was gotten by the Dakota Access Pipeline. When people knew about what was happening to Native Americans, protesting, they showed up to help. I think the more awareness about their poverty, the more changes could happen. But if people stay indifferent to the struggles of Native Americans and others in poverty, nothing will improve. There will be no aid. When is the last time any of us saw a commercial about Native Americans in poverty? There are lots of commercials about starving children in third world countries, but none about children living in similar conditions in our own country. If people know about this issue, then they might try to be more willing to help. I could imagine if church groups knew about these issues, they might take mission trips to these areas in our own country and fundraise for their needs. I could spread the awareness by talking about what I've learned. This is the only way I can prevent the dangers of indifference at this time in my life. Here are some sources I relied to gather my facts. I also obviously relied on the novel itself, The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian.